GPA happens to be one of the applications of cryptography. So initially the interest was from that angle that hey, this is one of the few subtopics that I will interact with throughout my study of cryptography. But it just so happened that this field was a lot more lucrative than, let's say, studying a lot of HTTP and how web servers work. Uh, so yeah, that was my initial entry into the space. Then definitely got very interested by decentralized finance and how it does have the ability to change how we interact with money, as countries, as normal people, as people across borders. I think that's a lot of the work that even you guys are doing with Orbit XP, and I've seen a lot of cross-border cards also coming into the space recently that are trying to make the exchange of value much more convenient and some I'd say even fair. So I think yeah, that's been my primary motivations in this space, just figuring out where everything is going, and one of those things led to another, and we end up finding Kubars, which is the company I'm running right now. And it's a pretty interesting story. I'd love to dive deeper when we officially begin the call,
Right.
but yeah, that's a bit about me. So I'm coming from a very I'd say hardcore maths and CS undergraduate training where we'd be looking at these as a lot, like not as a lot with software based on, but a lot of mathematical problem, so to say. It was more of a, I mean, I definitely am very excited about the new D apps coming up and a lot of the consumer applications coming up, but that's not really my forte. That's not something that I have dived very deep into. However, I am quite interested in the institutional adoption of this technology, which is something that I'm building towards in my company as well, and something that I'd love to discuss on this call as well. So yeah, apart from all of this, I do enjoy playing the ukulele, learning the guitar now, and yeah, just love to travel. I think pretty basic, like every other crypto bro that you'll meet. Basic list of things.
Pretty interesting. That was
Yeah.
really interesting. So, giving a little bit of more idea of like the audience sector which we'll be having today, it's
Mm.
moreover focused towards they're like there are a couple of people who are already well veterans in the industry, but majority of the audience comes from students, people who are looking for into like getting the entry into this whole ecosystem, or people who are still in their dabbling phase of like either do we go in here or what does the industry in detail looks like. So just giving you an idea, so you also know like who we are addressing to today. So keeping the level of conversations a little bit more grounded in terms of everyone can understand what we are discussing over here. So it's
For
just
sure.
yeah, just a little bit of an
For
note here.
sure. For sure. I'd love to understand what the geography of the viewers would be, because I think that would really help me contextualize a lot of things.
Sure, yeah. So I mean, here what we're running is called as like OnchAIn Asia. It's more on community focused towards like AI developers, AI builders, and anyone who's figuring out an AI. And apart from that, me, Vamsi, and the whole team usually comes from a very crypto specific background, and that results in we having a couple of crypto audience too. So moreover, you
Okay.
can in
Okay.
terms of yeah the technical point of view, it's like we'll have audience coming from both AI and crypto, anywhere from both of
Yeah.
this. And
And, and
yeah, yeah.
and I'm assuming most of the audience is from India, or
Yeah,
is
yeah,
that
it's,
right?
it's most of them are from India. Might be few from
Okay.
outside India, but you can expect
Okay.
around like 95-96% from India.
Definitely, definitely. I think that's pretty exciting. So, yeah, as you said, I mean, because there are a lot of young people, I would love to, uh, provide a glimpse into the opportunity that is coming up in the form of, tokenization of RWAs, real world assets, and, where the whole market is going. Recently, we saw that, I think it was, which bank was it? It was JP Morgan actually that came up with their Onyx platform, which has been rebranded now. That are doing, I think, close to like $2 billion worth of assets on chain now, and they really believe that in the future you will have a coexistence of different digital assets. Like you will have CBDCs, you will have stable coins, you will have crypto, you will have tokenized deposits, and a lot more things that probably we don't have today.
It's
And
tokenized stocks is also something which is coming up.
yep, definitely. There is Zolts that is doing tokenized stocks in India, if I'm not wrong.
Right. I mean, at
And
this point, there are like couple more folks who are doing tokenized stocks. So, in fact, like with the recent update from Solana, I think a month back, who introduced tokenized stocks, and I think it's coming in Phantom. This Phantom wallet, as easy as like
yeah,
yeah, anyone can buy
yeah.
stocks.
Yeah. So that's definitely there. I was thinking about it more from a very Indian perspective, and this is still very, very new to India. So in India, we have this company called Zolt that's based out of Bangalore that is building towards fractional stock ownership. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I haven't much explored, but yeah, probably in my free time I'll do it.
for
So,
sure, for sure. I mean, Zolt is a very interesting company in this space. They actually created India's first programmable CBDC solutions. So in India, you have the central bank digital currency that's bifurcated into two separate entities. One is the CBDC retail, that's called the CBDC R, that's there for the the normal consumers. And even today, you can go install the app, the CBDC app, and you'll get like a digital 100 rupee note on it that you can use to pay. It's very similar to how you pay on UPI. There's no major difference. It's just that the underlying mechanism is not UPI, but it's happening through a CBDC settlement layer. However, that did not really take off in terms of adoption, and like a lot of users in India just don't want to use those CBDC notes. They're very happy with UPI, but then you have the CBDC W or the CBDC wholesale that is seeing a lot of interesting use cases come up, particularly when it comes to automated payments. And I think there was recently a discussion on Twitter uh, between some representative of Polygon and a few more folks that with UPI, being there in India, what are the potential use cases of blockchain based payment technologies in India? And one of the very interesting use case that came out was you know these programmable payments. So yeah, if you want me to elaborate more, I can probably dive a bit deeper into one particular case study on how this can work.
oh, right. So yes, I think Vamsi just gave that small note for audience who would have probably heard CBDC for first time. But yeah, I mean the conversation is going pretty interesting, and honestly, we don't have any set of questions prepared, and it's more we are going to have it little candid in terms of like we share both of the like takes on particular point of discussions. So we'll
Hmm.
be having the format in that. But yeah, let's continue with this. So I think like okay, let's give it an official start right now. We are already like 8:13, getting minutes post 8. So hopefully, in green flag from Vamsi and Frederick, like hopefully we're good to go, right?
Yeah, we are good to go. And Vaibhav, if you want to share your screen, I'll stop presenting it. Like, do you want to present now?
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I'll let you know. I'll let you know if I
that's
want to
right.
present something.
Cool. We can start now. Cool, guys.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Vamsi, and thanks, Vaibhav, for taking your time and joining us in this today's town hall of OnchAIn Asia. And for those who are here, in this town hall for the first time, OnchAIn Asia is a community focused towards like AI builders, developers, and anyone who's figuring out their way into like getting started in AI or Web3. So that's we are bringing this as an hub for like-minded minds, and that's our whole agenda with like OnchAIn Asia. It's being supported by deep funding and a couple of partners of deep funding, and we have been running this from the last few 6 to 7 months, and pretty much the community has been growing. So parallelly, I would ask Famsi if you can just like drop the links of WhatsApp layer group. Please do it. So in meantime, if anyone has to join the WhatsApp group, we have a WhatsApp group. Please to join it out, and let's get started officially with this. For today, we have Vaibhav Sama and really great host. I mean, I'm very grateful to host him over here in today's space. And Vaibhav, as he has already introduced himself, Moro guy who is going towards through the whole fintech and his interest towards CBDC and everything. So getting started with it, he's building right now Kuber Labs, and we'll have it towards Vaibhav. You can, go and give more details about like what you're building, what your interest towards, and then we'll have like a couple
Yeah.
of questions which I have. We can discuss it out.
Yeah. Yeah. So the purpose with Kubar Labs is to unlock working capital financing for small and medium businesses. So essentially, let's just say you're a textile manufacturer that's sitting in Ajmer, and you get an order for 1 lakh shirts. Now you need to buy the working capital. Sorry, you need to buy the raw material, to buy the cotton, pay your guys to create shirts out of it. Other whatever raw materials you need to do all of that. You create everything, you send the shipment, then only you can generate an invoice and possibly get an invoice financing or some other product. Or if you don't, then you have to wait 90 days from the time you generate the invoice to get paid. Now, what happens? There are obviously two scenarios. One is that you have delivered the goods, but now you want to invest money into other projects. So you probably take that invoice, you give it to a lender, and you exchange it for some money, and they'll give you a discount. Now that's called invoice discounting. For example, your invoice is, let's say, worth 1 CR. I as a lender tell you that, hey, I'm going to pay you 90 lakhs for it. Take the 90 lakhs today, and then whenever the original payment for this invoice is going to come, that's 1 CR, it will all be due to me. So as a lender, I make, let's say, 10 lakhs in this transaction. Now that is a very privileged use case, I'd say, because for majority of the small and medium businesses in India, they don't even have the money to fund the raw material and ultimately ship the order and generate an invoice. So what happens in that case? That case, you get a purchase order and you sort of generate financing basis of the purchase order, that hey, this is an order and it's legally binding, and if you give me money, I'll be able to furnish the order and sort of get myself paid and get you paid as well. So that is what we do right now. We are doing it for Indian businesses. We are unlocking domestic liquidity for small and medium businesses in India, and our focus is going and reaching out to the deepest tiers of Indian supply chains. By that I mean geographically as well as financially, the tier 2, 3, 4, 5 of India, and the suppliers or the manufacturers sitting in these particular tiers. And the goal with Kubar is to ultimately take this cross-border, enter the cross-border trade financing space. And just like we are unlocking domestic liquidity for Indian SMBs, unlock global liquidity for SMBs in emerging markets. And why do we do this? The reason is pretty simple, that banks that are sitting in developed economies, such as the United States, they have large reserves of underutilized capital. Now, if they deploy that capital in their own economy, they won't get that big of an ROI because it is a developed economy. So they are looking at developing economies and the opportunities there to sort of invest that money in. Now, working capital financing, be it, it's in a lot of different instruments. It can be invoices, purchase orders, letters of credit, can be a multiple instruments, are pretty interesting, are a good asset class to invest in. And these guys really do want to invest in, but there's no way for them to invest in it directly. So these SMBs, right, in India, they're called MSMEs, or micro, small and medium enterprises. So enterprises that are not bigger than, let's say, 50 CR annual turnover. They make like up to 30% of our GDP, and India has 64 million of these. Now we can see that our GDP is very, very heavily influenced by their contribution. Even employment, I think they contribute up to 45% to employment. So they really influence these two fields, which is kind of true for, I'd say a lot more emerging markets as well. So I think we can very safely conclude that yes, these SMBs are a critical part of every emerging market economy, and they desperately need financing. And these economies don't really have access to large reserves of money for this financing. So if we can create a financial bridge for the investors that really want to give them money, and the people who really want to take the money, it can be a worthwhile solution. Today, the problem is that, let's say I am a supplier in India. I have already supplied my goods to someone, an invoice has been generated, and the invoice has also been approved. Now I'm just waiting for the money, right? And I want to get this financed, and maybe there's some lender in the United States that wants to finance it, but it's not a guarantee that this invoice will be a legal tender in the States. It will be recognized as legal tender. So that creates a barrier, right? And you can obviously do it through intermediaries, but that introduces slippage, and then your profit margins dwindle. So a lot of these countries, they came together and they created this thing called unilateral MLETR, which is basically modal law on electronic transferables and receivables. So that's MLETR. And the interesting part about it is it's basically a global legal framework that's adopted by the United Nations to enable digital trade by giving legal validity to electronic versions of key trade documents, which would be bills of lading, promissory notes, invoices, letters of credit. So this basically ensures that they have the same legal force as their paper counterparts, fostering paperless trade and innovation, like blockchain use. So this is basically RWA tokenization, but it's happening for invoices or other trade finance instruments. And if this particular tokenized representation is compliant with these MLETR standards, then it is globally recognized legal tender. So it basically gives it what you call legal validity, right? So
Right. So when I mean, this is a question from my own end, like when you mentioned about like RW. So one big question comes over here is like at very first thing, it's not accepted pretty much globally at this point, I would say. And
yeah,
second, I would like to ask you this thing, like what are the obstacles you are facing currently right now in this particular way, how you're executing it?
I mean, it has been incredibly difficult, and I think that's why we are all here. It's a very difficult problem to solve, right? But I think we've been very fortunate after hitting a lot of roadblocks. We've come to the right conclusion for this, right? So one thing I'll tell you about RWAs and their adoption. I am not an expert on how that's going in the decentralized or DeFi markets anymore, because I've not been very active in the DeFi markets ever since 2022. I saw a very clear use case in institutional finance,
Yes.
and that's where I have moved towards. So what I can do on this call is give you a lot of insights on what's happening in that space, right? And how adoption is looking at that space.
Right. Please go on with it.
Yeah. So when you're looking at RWAs, right, and again, I'm very active in the trade finance का जो sub niche है, right? So the problem statement is pretty real, right? It's a very huge problem statement, and unfortunately, a lot of the problems that we have previously chosen to solve in the blockchain space have not been very real problems. I mean, they are problems for sure, but are they scalable problems that people are willing to pay for and it's really going to transform their lives? Not a lot of projects say that about themselves, right?
Well, I mean, at this point, people, when when the couple of social media coming up with this whole concept of like it's a decentralized and like secure social media, but at the end people don't care much about it. Let's talk about the base app. Let's talk about Farcaster, Wapcast, or whatever have come already this time. So we kind of in this whole Web3 space, what I do believe is also that we ourselves have created a problem. We first created a problem and then a solution to it. Probably people don't realize that this problem existed, and first we have to teach them through like this is a problem, please realize this is a problem and you need our solution. So that's how most of the like couple of things in this industry is running. But and that's the whole reason why we have not still been able to like break the whole crypto bubble, we say. So the reason of this crypto bubble is that we have created our own set of like rules and norms, and we tend to believe it. But sometimes when you speak someone out of the crypto bubble, they say like it doesn't make sense to me, right? Like people.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, I've been like a believer in that for a lot of for a great extent of time, but now I've also come to the realization that I have been. So this is something I learned from one of my mentors, that you are either a B2B founder, or you are a D2C founder, and you need to figure that out very early on about yourself. Otherwise, you'll end up wasting a lot of time. And I have always been in the B2B space, and I don't think that I understand, people as much as I'm able to understand systems, or I'm able to understand problems very easily, but I'm not able to understand people very easily. Which is why I would probably never get into personal credit. That's like a very hard rule at our at Kubar Labs that personal credit is not something we'll ever look into. Now, when you're talking about Base app or Farcaster, I think they were great initiatives, right?
Right. Yeah.
And sure, I do not agree with a lot of how things have played out, but again, they probably know something about consumer psychology that I have no clue, right? And they probably are sort of making a very wild bet, just like the bet that I am making or you're making, but it's just not very clear to us what that exact bet is.
Right. Right. Makes sense. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like we're still in the process, and even like all these social media apps. Although there have been pretty much a lot of such decentralized social media, and like earn by posting kind of social media, which did came into existence, but it was never able to survive because you can say that it not having bigger pedigree back of it. But currently,
Yeah.
Coin is doing it itself, so that's like the big daddy is over here, and we are going to take over this whole social media thing is what they came up with. So yes, like
Yeah.
obviously this is an interesting case study which I personally am like attached to my seats to look forward at what's actually going to happen, how this thing. And I have been an myself and base app user from like last from the very early stages of like when they had initially yeah, started giving couple of like invites. I've been myself testing it out, although I never got a motivation to like keep on posting. Only I use it for like testing the this thing product, like how they have been growing and how is it going. But it's pretty interesting case study of like what's going on with that. And I think there are a couple of questions which have been coming parallelly. There's Carlson who did
Yeah,
ask.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've noted Carlson's thing down, and I'll definitely take it up in the next 5 minutes. But yeah, I mean, base is pretty interesting. I see a lot of base posting. I saw it in the comments as well. And recently they partnered with this company called, I think, First Money, First Dollar, something like that. And they were giving out rewards to a lot of people who posted, content around base.
Right,
And I know someone who personally, like, I think they got like $180 or something like that
$1
by
post.
posting about base. Now, I think a lot of oiling to the engine is happening. I am not sure why the engine is being oiled, but I think there are much smarter people than me out there who know exactly why the engine is being oiled.
Right. I mean, yes, like probably there are a couple of things which I'd like to add, but preferably not in this particular meet over here. Anyway, like going to the next phase, probably if you would like to answer for Carlson, take the
Yeah,
stage.
yeah. Yeah, so Carlson, when it comes to stable coins in the B2B space, I mean, see, a lot of use cases do exist, right? And I'm going to talk about one that I am really interested in because I've been looking at the whole cross-border trade financing space. See, I mean, even if you abstract it from finance, even if you like step away from financing for a bit, I think a lot of supply chains are looking to become more and more global, and payments and remittances and escrows, all of that are a very big problem even today. And a lot of this has to come, on chain. I'm not saying public blockchains. That's probably not where it's at, but if the audience is familiar with this thing called Corda and XTC and the kind of work that they are doing in the trade finance space, I think that is a very interesting proposition that I am seeing. And then there's also the Bank of International Settlements (BIS) that's doing a lot of cool work. So if anyone here is a student, I would really, really recommend, or even a young professional, I really recommend just checking out this thing called G20 Tech Sprint by BIS. It's sort of their hackathon for international financing problem statements, just international money transfer problem statements. And you know if you have a proposal, you should definitely send your proposal and see, because if it gets accepted here, you'll get a lot of institutional support to make all of this possible, right? And that is where brings me back to MLETR, right? So previously you could have RWAs, right, Prayas? So you could have, and I could have an RWA that I have created, right? I tell you that, hey, listen, let's say you are sitting in Dubai, and I tell you, hey, I have this tokenized invoice. Can you finance it for me? You'll be like, yeah, I will finance it, but how do I know its validity? So MLETR gives it that validity on an institutional level. So yeah, and countries representing 30% of the world GDP already on there, right? So you have Singapore, you have the UAE, you have the UK, you have France, and you have multiple others that have either adopted or are implementing laws based on MLETR. I think the G7 countries, including India, is adopting it in the next 2 years. Also, Josh, when you're asking about the tech sprint, I'm going to just put it in the chat here. You can just go to this link and check out the tech sprint results for this year. So there are 3 companies that actually won. This company called OnchAIn from South Africa. They were developing digital identity solutions, basically establishing trust among FIs through privacy preserving digital identity technology like DIDs. And then you also had someone who was doing work on credit data portability, and something on fraud and cyber risk as well. So global supply chains, right? They are one of the, I'd say, one of the most prime places to really put this technology, right? Because they are losing a lot of money. Yeah. So and they are also kind of early adopters. I mean, even if you look at India, I mean, I shared the BIS thing here. India is also developing this thing called the Finternet. Again, it's by Nandan Nilekani itself. He's taking charge of the project. There's also other people like Pramod involved. And you have a lot of these meetings, the Finternet meetings in Bangalore itself. So we were chatting with the team when Finternet was, just a repository with a few diagrams, and they had recently did a talk at Solana, one of the Solana events. I think it was Breakpoint last year.
Yeah.
I think it was, yeah. So Internet is basically an internet of financial ecosystems, like interconnected financial ecosystems. So think of it as multiple private ledgers, and they are sort of intersecting at places wherever they need to transact with each other. So
that's interesting. So also, if you want to share your screen, do let us know. So like Vamsi will allow you.
Yeah, sure. If I need to share my screen, I'll definitely let you know.
Okay, perfect.
But so these are some ways to definitely break into. And again, a lot of the B2B use cases with stable coins are going to be very primitive right now, but it's going to be a lot about implementation, right? Because these are very sensitive problem statements. So you might hear it and be like, hey, this does not sound very complicated, but then building it, getting the regulations, the compliance and everything in order, making sure your system downtime does not exist, and getting all of those things in check. I mean, the implementation, the execution is incredibly rigorous, right? So I think another place to really look at B2B use cases would be the RBI Harbinger Hackathon. So RBI does this hackathon for fintechs every year. And I'm assuming that most of the people here do have an interest in how, blockchain, CBDCs, tokenization can be used in the financial context. I'm just going to share my screen for a second and show you what the press release for Harbinger was this year. And there are 3 problem statements. One is around tokenized KYC, which I think a lot of people here would have ideas, how to implement DIDs at population scale in India. And then there's offline CBDC, which is also very interesting because I saw this Indian origin guy, Satvik, build offline protocol, and I've been sort of following his journey for a very long time. And it basically lets you message other people through mesh technology, so you don't really have to use internet. I think Jack Dorsey also retweeted, when he announced his project. Jack Dorsey is also working on, he also built something very similar, where you can do peer-to-peer communication using mesh technology, and you don't need internet. It's Bluetooth based, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
So if anyone wants to explore that further, there's the offline CBDC, and then there's the enhancing trust. And now this one is a very broad scale problem statement. So anyways, I would definitely, suggest, Carlson to check these out. to understand where the actual use cases could be seen. But today, as I said, like they come in a few broad categories: payments, remittances, settlements, automated settlements, vendor relationships. I mean, if you can build a really cool supply chain management tool using blockchain, very, very interesting. Where else? I think certifications as well, right? Because a lot of you'll have a lot of companies that have manufacturing units in multiple states in the country, and let's say they have to get the same certification in multiple states. But if you can collaborate with the government and you can get like one certification that is on chain but it is accepted across a variety of jurisdictions, then you can save a lot of cost for them as well, and it can all be much more streamlined. That can be one. And then again, tracing, right? So global supply chains really do have a very big problem with tracing right now. Tracing of uh, the value chain, the supply chain, what the deeper tiers of the supply chains look like. So I think that can be an interesting problem statement in the B2B space. Uh, Not directly tackled by stable coins. I mean, this is not a stable coin problem, but solved by blockchain technology in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So yes, I mean that's pretty much good insights into like where stable coins can be used and how blockchain can be used in more in B2B sector. But when like basically when you go to enterprises and ask like you basically try to say that this is what we're building and this is how we can be helpful. Like what's your experience towards like how do they, because I don't think like everyone is like everyone would understand this particular technology, and probably there will be a couple of people who come back with you, and how do you tackle it? That's like the part which I would like to ask.
Just before we get into that, I'd just like to conclude the last thing I was saying. So one of the really interesting use cases that I have seen recently is this company called MVP Materials. That's one of the people involved is Ajay Singh. He was previously the founder of DLT Labs as well. They do blockchain traceability for battery materials. Because today, recycling batteries is something that all of us want to do, but the tracking of the battery chemicals is not happening efficiently for recycling purposes. So that is a great use case for blockchain, and he's trying to do it there. But yeah, you're talking about adoption, right? Like how are you doing enterprise sales when you're playing at this?
Yes.
I think there is no defined playbook. That's why it's very interesting. What I can share is what has worked for us and what I have seen working for uh, bigger folks out there. I think one is being very, very problem driven and not very solution driven, because I would assume that most of us here are technologists, and we have a way of looking at things which again it's very beautiful, but not everyone is going to agree to it. And in the real world, it might not be the optimal solution. It might be the most optimal solution on paper, but not in the real world. So definitely, I'd say before you build anything, go to the complete depth of a problem. And I'd say another thing that really helps is participating in basically getting markers of credibility somehow or the other, right? Because Zolt's, which sort of built India's first programmable CBDC solutions, and they're also looking at DLT technology. They were having a problem with adoption. I mean, not having a problem, they were a startup, right? So adoption was always like tough. But then they won the RBI Harbinger hackathon, and it really changed things for them, because now people are looking at them more seriously. And so that had a lot of credibility. So now they're able to sell, like they closed I think Bank of Baroda after the hackathon itself. So that was pretty exciting. And then one bank comes in, more credibility, it gets transferred, it's a domino effect. Then there's also sandboxes, right? So if anyone is building in India, there's a great opportunity coming up. So there is this thing called the IFSCA, which is the International Finances Certifying Authority, something like this. And they are coming up with their fintech sandbox in Gift City. And so if Gift City, if people are not aware, it's a place in Gandhinagar in Gujarat in India, and it's designed as the hub for international finance in India. So you get a lot of benefits when it comes to forex, cross-border remittances, settlements, a lot of that, like insane amount of benefits. and it's a corridor that's designed very much like the DIFC, the Dubai, the finance international finance corporation, like the DIFC hub. And yeah, it's supposed to be a global hub for international financing, and they're coming up with this sandbox, the IPSCA sandbox. It will probably be first cohort will probably be sometime around next year, and we will most probably be a part of it as well. So I would urge everyone who is looking to build in anything cross-border from India, definitely be on the lookout for this. This could be great, right? If you are able to validate your solution in the sandbox, selling it to enterprises will become much easier for you, because at the end of the day, see, any big client that you're going to go to, any bank that you're going to go approach, they are going to ask you for this, right? There's some sandboxing that you need to do. I mean, the biggest projects, right? Even we were talking about XDC did their fintech sandboxing in, I think, Dubai itself, in Singapore as well, if I'm not wrong. So yeah, that could be it. And then again, going to the depth of problem statement.
Right. And when you're mentioning about like XTC and blockchain, so at this point, like when even like we are building a product, we do consider a couple of chains as like the home chain, the chain which we look forward, for payments. We have this couple of chains like currently Base is doing really good. Polygon has been always in payment chain, and going forward, Solana is a really good player in this industry also. These are like the top tier chains, I would say. Polygon also doesn't perform much in a couple other places, but in terms of payments, it's still one of the good considered chains. And apart from that, BSC, Tron, so these are a couple of chains which we look forward from a product perspective. But when it comes to which like ecosystems you're more bullish towards, like or like you feel like from where you sit, which ecosystem is moving fastest when it comes to B2B adoption of like RW and tokenization?
Yeah, so again, all of these are really nice in their own ways, right? I mean, I am a very big fan of what Chainlink has done. Chainlink, the CCIP modules that they have, right? And I'm also a big fan of the Polygon CDK that's now enabling interoperable RWAs. I am also very fascinated by Union Network, that is basically an interop network. However, when it comes to DeFi, or even to a great extent in CeFi, all of these are very legible options. But institutional finance may there are other players, and they form the like. Okay, let me just give you an example. So we use something called Coda. Now Coda is written in Java, and it's built by R3, which is a consortium of ex-bankers that came together, and they built a private permissioned distributed ledger system that's purpose built for heavily regulated financial environments. And all of the big settlements that you might have heard of, for example, the World Economic Forum did $100 million transaction on the blockchain. It was all done here. Okay. Wells Fargo is on this system. HSBC is on this system. So all the major banks are adopting Coda, right? And XDC happens to be the settlement coin for Coda. XDC is also built by a consortium of ex-bankers and regulators. So it's also purpose built for exactly this kind of use cases. So in India itself, there is this thing called Finacle. Finacle is a blockchain-based trade financing solution. It's built by Infosys, of everyone out there. Okay, you wouldn't expect Infosys to be here. And it's already sort of deployed at the leading banks in India. If I was just to give you a list of the banks actively using the Finacle system, SBI, they're one of the largest users of Finacle. Bank of Baroda, Bank of India, PNB, Punjab National Bank, their digital banking initiatives are happening through Finacle. You have the Union Bank of India, you have the Indian Overseas Bank, you have Punjab and Sindh Bank, PSB, you have ICICI Bank, and you have Axis, you have IDBI, IndusInd, Kotak Mahindra Bank. Kotak has implemented Finacle 10 across, I think, 335 branches. IndusInd has partnered with Finacle, the latest version for their core banking transformation. Then you have Federal Bank. You have even some like urban cooperative banks. You have the Urban Cooperative Bank Bareilly. You probably have Vidya Shakhari Bank. You have a couple of banks that are using this. So again, you can go out and build on, let's say, Polygon, and then you can create some sort of a bridge. But unfortunately, a lot of bridges don't exist with, let's say a Coda to Polkadot bridge does not exist. So you have to write the bridge yourself. and maintaining that bridge is going to be a hassle. And we just realized that, okay, for our trade finance use case, Coda is sort of the best place to build it out. Why? Because it's private permissioned, right? So you can put all the sensitive details there. So interestingly, how Coda operates is that, let's say I am your buyer, you are my supplier, and then we have a person three, that's the financier. So every time there's a transaction happening, a private permission ledger is created between the buyer and the supplier. And now it's private. And now you can permission other entities to see it as and when you like it. For example, there is a transaction, buyer, supplier, financier has happened. So now we three have a private ledger among us. Tomorrow we want to give view only access to an auditor. We can do that. We can remove it whenever we want. So it gives us complete control. So all the sensitive details are secure. And then you create a public representation of it and put it on XDC. Right now, this can be an ERC7334 token. It can be any kind of token, right? I mean, you have a lot of new standards coming for RWAs now, and yeah, you just put it on XDC and you can do your transactions there. Or if you want, you can directly sort of connect Coda to the central banking systems and work that way, right? For example, Finacle is also written in Coda, right? So let's just say you want to sort of so how financing happens, right, at scale is that let's say I'm a bank or I'm a lender in general. I will have this thing called a loan management system, which is basically my entire OS for giving out a loan. Now that will have a small component called the loan origination system through which borrowers enter me, and then my rule matching and my underwriting engine, all of them work and they create a code, and then the entire process happens. Now you can think of Finacle as the LOS LMS, but in the blockchain context. But there needs to be a way for borrowers to enter that system, right? Now, what we are looking to what we are creating at Gift, right? And this is a part of our larger roadmap. This is again why we started the company, to cross-border trade financing. We are creating a novel tokenizer, right? Now, this is something that we are getting patented as well. I mean, we'll try our best. It's a novel tokenizer that takes in any trade finance asset, SBL, EBL, invoices, any kind of bills, converts it, and what it outputs is a tokenized representation of it that is compliant with the ML-ETR standards. And this now we can push to Finacle Trade Connect and treat it like as the LOS, right? So we sort of can put the borrowers on there. Now it just so happens that we both are on Coda, so we don't really need to build a bridge, right? So I mean, sure, you can build on public blockchains, but you need to have a very strong reason, a very compelling reason. I have not found that reason yet.
That actually, I did had this question in my mind of asking you towards, should be this thing, enterprises prefer public blockchains in the upcoming days, but as you did mention, probably not right now. So going forward with this, I think, yeah, please.
Yeah. Again, it depends on what problem are you trying to solve. Because for a lot of problems, public blockchains can be the answer. For example, I know one of the companies in India that's doing a lot of work in digital transformation for banks, which includes, giving them access, like building blockchain-based technologies for them. And they built their stack on Stellar, actually. So yeah, I mean, again, lots of interesting things happen, right? You can chart your own path. I'd actually love to work with you guys. So I was a part of U Combinator a while back, right? So okay, before we get, I want to share like exactly what we are doing today at Kuba, right? So we talked about the tokenizer. Now the thing is, you can definitely take in these trade finance assets, create a tokenized representation, but you need something called an ITFS license, which is an International Trade Finance System license, to actually initiate, cross-border trade financing deals. Now, to get that ITFS license in India, you need 3 years of domestic lending experience. IFSC is the one that gives this license. So even if we build this tokenizer, and that's our plan, to get the tokenizer through the sandbox next year itself, then we'll have the tokenizer and we want to license it to other parties until we get our own ITFS sort of license and start doing it on our own. So we'll also build a competing system to, let's say, Finacle Trade Connect if needed, or we'll look at, I mean, because in India you have this, right? So you probably don't need it, but maybe in other countries you don't have it. So it's either we hope that companies like these come up and expand, or we are going to sort of, do it on our own. But whatever happens, right, we can't really. So ultimately, what we'll have to do for now is take this tech and license it to other players so that you can use our tech and create tokenized representations. Because the tokenized representation that we create are not going to be of much value because we don't have the ITFS license. But ultimately, we want to own the ITFS and it also increase our revenue share and help us build more liquid financial products, more customized financial products, right? So what are we doing today, right? We need 3 years of domestic lending experience. So we saw the problem statement. That's where the domestic part comes in. We saw that MSMEs in India, which is micro, small, and medium enterprises, businesses with an annual turnover less than 50 CR, which is again 64 million of them in India. Less than 10% have access to formal credit. Right? So when we used to think, so Prayasi, you might remember back in 2022, a lot of the DeFi space was all about frictionless finance, if you remember. Right? How do you get banking to the underbanked or unbanked, right? So in India, these people have just not tasted formal credit. What they have to rely on is informal money lenders that charge them exorbitant rates, 48%, 36% per annum, those kinds of rates, 3%, 4%, 6% per month. I mean, even seen it go up to 10% per month, which is very common, right? You have these informal lenders in every corner. Because of this, most people don't take the financing because the unit economics don't make sense. If I borrow money at 10%, I anyways have thin margins as an MSME, I will end up in loss. But a lot of people don't consider it and they end up in loss after taking the money. So this is actually, leading to around 3.6 lakh to 4.8 lakh crore being wasted annually on these informal money lenders. And you have 57, 58 million MSMEs who've just not tasted formal credit, right? So that is what we are trying to bridge. The credit gap in India for MSMEs is $330 billion. So today what we are doing is we are enabling more lenders to come into this space, right? So the thing is, if you look at HSBC has this system called Sage that will collect all of the data and it will tell you who to lend out money to and who to not. But the smaller players, the small and mid-sized lenders in India, they can't create systems like these because the technology cost is too high. The expertise cost is also too high. You have to get finance experts, tech experts, get them together, build the system. So what do? We build these systems for them and we distribute the cost over a network. So we are basically selling enterprise SaaS to microfinance institutions, to fintechs, and to NBFCs for them to profitably scale their loan book in the MSME sector while taking care of default rates. Because default rates is a very big problem in this space, right? I mean, last month, the MSME defaults touched 5.8%, if I'm not wrong, 5.8 to 4.8, 5.8 only, yeah. Which is crazy numbers, right? So a lot of people are pulling out of MSME financing. And that is where we come in. We provide the right tools because, we realize, today in India, you go to any startup exhibition, you go to the fintech panel, you'll find there are at least 10 fintechs that say we do MSME financing. I'm pretty sure all of us have come across those fintechs. We don't do MSME financing. We are providing the tools for MSME financing, right? Just like there's an AI rush in the world and NVIDIA is selling the shovels for it, right? For the AI gold rush. Yeah. Now we are also doing the same thing. There's an MSME financing rush in India. There needs to be 10, 15, 20 more lenders that need to come in and service this gap because the $330 billion is not going to come out of thin air, right? Now, how do you make it affordable and easy for these lenders to come and start lending in this space? That is what we are taking care of, right? But we all know that, when we all hypothesize at least, that once we actually reach AGI, NVIDIA has access to the largest amount of distribution and the chips. So they are going to stop selling the shovels and start mining for gold on their own. I mean, that is at least what a lot of us think. We are also doing the same thing, right? Right now, we are selling enterprise SaaS, right? Why? We're generating network effect, right? We are trying to map the deeper tiers of Indian supply chains. So what we want is volumes. We want transaction volumes on our network. So what do we build today? We have this very simple interface that any MSME from any tier of India can use and apply for a loan in less than 5 minutes. Does not matter what your technical literacy is or your financial literacy is. You can even do voice enabled loans, right? So it's all about accessibility. Now we take this interface and we embed it across multiple channels, across wherever commerce is happening. B2B marketplaces, open commerce networks like ONDC, GEM, a lot of these places, ERP systems, and business management software. So wherever commerce is happening, we bring credit. That gives us access to the lowest amount of cap. It also solves one very interesting problem that I'll get into. But yeah, think of us as Razorpay, embedded infrastructure, but for credit, right? Now, the other problem that this helps us solve, now MSMEs, one of the biggest problems about them is lack of data. They don't have enough traditional financial data, and the data they do have is activity data that is spread across various systems. Not profitable to integrate all of this at all of these systems, right? But it is for us because we offer credit there. So we integrate through at all of these systems in the value chain, and we combine all of this data. We defragment this data that is currently fragmented across various systems, and we create an interoperable credit profile for these folks. Yeah. So for an NBFC, we sort of give them access to a lot of borrowers at a very cheap rate. We sort of filter the borrowers according to their criteria. We give them access to alternative data points, and we also do complete servicing of the loan. Very similar to what Salient, this YC company, does for auto lenders in the US, like basically helping them take care of repayments and everything. And yeah, ultimately we want to, like, the more transactions that happen on a network, the more our algorithms also learn, and we want to use that to sort of start deploying our own capital as well in the next 2 years. And all of this is just to get our ITFS license so that we can sort of engage in cross-border trade financing. So yeah, that's pretty much all of the work that we do at Kubar.
Interesting. That's interesting. I believe like there are a couple of people dropping off because we do have to wrap it up by 9 p.m. So let's cut it short right now. It was really interesting, having you here and all the conversations we had, and preferably for many of them, including myself, that we did get to learn a lot. So let's have this open currently, for if there's anyone having any sort of question that you want to ask Vaibhav. Vaibhav is here right now for the next 4 to 5 minutes. So please feel free to either unmute yourself, ask it, or you can use the text box and you can ask whatever you feel like asking to Vaibhav.
It was actually an insightful session. Actually, I think we can do the session again, maybe in January or February. Then we can find time.
Yes, Sujit, if you want to ask about hackathons, what do you want to know about hackathons like Harbinger? I believe he's asking about any of the hackathons. Vaibhav,
Yeah, sure. See, there's Harbinger. See, you have to be on the lookout. I would suggest that a few portals could be the Startup India website. They post a lot of these there because most of these are government hackathons, right? There are private hackathons happening left and right. I mean, some of the biggest ones happen from BIS, the Bank of International Settlements. Do check out their website. They have a lot of cool stuff going on. Do check out, RBI has Harbinger every year. Triple IT Hyderabad also has a fintech hackathon, I'd say, every year. So that's an interesting place to check it out. What else? Every year around the global fintech, this year itself, I'm not sure about every year. This year, NPCI and NVIDIA collaborated around the time of the Global Fintech Festival that happens every year in Bombay. And they did their own sort of a hackathon thing. It was not really a hackathon, more like a contest. Apart from that, see, if you just want to understand what are the problem statements I can build on. So RBI does this thing, the RBI Innovation Hub does this thing called RBI Finteract. Okay, I'm just going to write the spelling here. So you can definitely check this out. So this is a way for you to directly engage with the regulators in India and chat with them and figure out what are the problem statements. You can very candidly tell them that, hey, this is what I'm thinking to build. Is this going to be legally viable? Or what are the regulatory frameworks around this? Because a lot of the things that you will have in your head, the regulatory frameworks just don't exist yet, which is the problem that we also faced. with Kubar, right? And we had to go through two pivots actually. So the idea for Kubar was born at Polkadot Blockchain Academy. So I was a part of the founders track of the Hong Kong cohort, and because it was born there, it was like it started with I think a 24-25 page white paper, and was designed to be on Polkadot. So okay spent a lot of time on that, but yeah, had to realize that in India maybe putting all of this on Polkadot is not a great idea in terms of efficiency as well. And then we looked at other solutions, and then we sort of stumbled upon that, hey, you do the tokenization bit on the side, because anyways adoption is going to take another 2 years to catch up. And for the core, you build towards your own ITFS license, right? Because I mean, obviously, like if I had a lot of money, I would just be like, hey, can I buy a company that has an ITFS license? But unfortunately, very few companies have the license, and all of them are very rich companies. Okay. So Pratik, you wanted to ask about how do we plan to increase MSME onboarding with our platform, keeping the regulations. Oh, okay. So ISME regulations are not that big of a problem. Okay, I mean, we've built some very great relationships with the Gift City. We are incubated at Gift City. So we do have access to a lot of mentors. So whenever we need to figure out that if what we are doing is right or not, we can just ask them. We also have good relation with the RBI Innovation Hub, but for this particularly onboarding MSMEs, there are no hurdles that you're going to face. What we do is we don't actively engage with MSMEs. We engage with the platforms that they work with. So we integrate with platforms. But one very interesting thing that we are doing to create stickiness with these MSMEs, because the MSMEs are our strength, right? The borrowers are our strength. We're doing a lot of things in education, MSME education, because not a lot of things have been done yet. Uh, a lot of it is AI generated. 70% of our content is AI generated, but we have sort of mastered our workflows over the last 6 months. So very nice content that's coming out. We even do podcasts and stuff. We want to do human podcast, but we will do it later on. But our podcasts are a lot about how to avail government schemes and MSME, how to register, how to get your bank account, a lot of those things. So we're creating some sort of a brand for MSMEs, because although this is the B2B market, this happens to be a very normal guy that has a normal man or woman that also happens to have a shop floor or a unit. This is not the suited, booted audience that you usually expect when you think of B2B, right? It's the same guy that's taking care of, the finances, the logistics, all of it. So you want to decrease the burden, mental burden as much as possible. And the marketing is very, very B2C, right? When we are marketing to financial institutions, there it's a lot about enterprise sales. But when you're looking at, MSMEs, then you're looking a lot at how do you create some sort of a credible brand with them, the brand that they trust, right? Even if today we are putting out content and we're not offering them money, like if they think of us, when they think of our finances, if they associate us as a credible sort of person who taught them how to get a government grant, or how to get their regulations sorted, or all of those things, then they'll definitely, if they see our name again when it comes to financing, they'll trust it way more. Ayush, very interesting question. You're trying to build a privacy-first prediction market, which does not expose your positions for MEV bots. Wanted to ask if it's viable to build in India, as I read that prediction markets fall in the gray zone in India. Prediction markets, they have always fallen in the gray zone, be it any part of the world. It's just about how good you are able to sell your story. I really do feel that. But selling your story in India is going to be difficult. But yeah, I would still say that, see, with India, if what you're not building is, I mean, even if you're building something that is very, very institution driven, you need some form of, some sort of access to the door. I'd be very honest about it. A year and a half back, when we were, trying to chart out the idea for Kubar, and even a year back when we started working on it, the information available is very sparse, particularly to fintech in India. So that's why we ended up wasting a lot of time, made a lot of mistakes. But now, I would say, like, very honestly, just reach out to the RBI Innovation Hub and just ask them, just shoot them an email that, hey, I'm trying to build this. Is this going to fly by? Now, I'm not very optimistic about your particular use case here, if it's going to work out in India, but it's always worth shooting your shot.
Perfect. I think like with this, we are done with the questions for today. And yes, if you said it right, you
Oh
want to.
yeah, Freddie. So what I can do is, if anyone is interested on how we approach the whole Kubar problem statement and how we built our first uh, product, so we've put a mini blog series on it. It's called Notes from Building Navdan. Navdan is our first product. It's India's first embedded credit hub that's designed for MSMEs, solely for MSMEs. So I've shared a link here. So this does talk a lot about the approaches that not very much in depth. Maybe we'll come up with that now that you've sown the seed for it. But this is what we have sort of come up with. Yeah.
Interesting. So I think let's, probably we would like to invite you again for our next space, probably like in 2026, early in Jan or
For
Feb,
sure.
where it's possible. So yes, like I would like to take this opportunity to thank you from myself, Vamsi, Freddy, and the complete team of OnchAIn Asia. So it was really great hosting you over here, and thank you for your time and thank you for all the participants joining up with us, spending your 1 hour of precious time on a Friday evening with us. So yes, let's say it and wrap up for today, and see you all in the next event. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Great time being here. I really loved the questions. If anyone has some more questions, do please hit me up on LinkedIn or even Twitter. My Twitter is the same. So this is the same idea I have everywhere. You can just hit me up. We have invested a lot of time understanding the regulatory landscape of international finance and a lot more, and understanding Indian finance and how it's going to go cross border. So if anyone is building in cross-border payments, settlements, remittances, even financing, or any such use case, do feel free to reach out. Yeah. Also, thank you, Prayasu. Thank you, Freddie. Thank you, Vamsi. It was a really nice time. Yeah.
See you soon, man. See you soon.
Thank you,
See
everyone.
you.
Have a good day.
Everyone, thank you for joining. Let's wrap the call for now. Good evening, everyone. Bye.